All right, welcome to another No Bullshit podcast for contractors. And what we're going to be talking about today is we're going to be talking about protecting you from a legal perspective. We got Kayla Kwinter with us. She's a construction lawyer, and she's going to give you guys insights on, how you got to protect yourselves from with contracts. We're going to talk about liens. We're going to talk about all the things that you need to know from a protective legal perspective. Because guess what? If you're not protecting yourself, who's protecting you? Okay, let's see you on the flip side. Until right now, this very moment, contractors have always been on their own, not as tradespeople, but being alone and knowing how to take their business to the next level. They call us working class, they call us blue collar. They say that we don't have the smarts to become the business owner that we're meant to be. That is such bullshit. You have the ability. You're more than any of that. The question really is, where do you get the insights that you need specific to contracting to systemize your business so you can get your profits to pay for your freedom? I'm Andrew Houston. I'm going to show you how to make more profits, how to get more control, how to get more freedom in the simplest, quickest way possible without any of that bullshit. Welcome to the No Bullshit podcast for contractors. Listen up, level up, and if you learn something, like the video, subscribe to the channel, change your business, change your life. All right, we are going live here. Welcome everybody to another No Bullshit podcast for contractors. And I've got top-notch rockstar with me today. I got Kayla with me, and Kayla is going to be talking to us about legal aspects. She specializes in the contracting space, and we're going to sort of run this like a bit of a Q&A. And basically, for those of you that are in the Facebook group, the Profitable Contractors Association Facebook group, just post your questions and we're going to do our best to facilitate that. But in the interim, we're going to address, some of the top questions that get typically asked from a legal perspective. Kayla, welcome.
Hi, Andrew. Thanks so much for that great introduction. For those of you who don't know me, and I'm sorry, I can't actually see who's on this live right now.
That's okay, no problem. I can see it.
Some familiar faces, and but for those of you who I don't know, my name is Kayla Kwinter. I am a partner at a law firm in Toronto called Tork and Mins. I specialize in construction law. I have colleagues who specialize in most other areas of the law, but again, my specialty is construction law, and I do the contract drafting side as well as the litigation. So I've worked with a lot of PFC clients already, and I'm always excited to work with more. Today, Andrew has asked me to come and have a little chat about some of the ways that you can protect yourself and your business as a contractor. I'm sure that most of you have already experienced that construction can be a challenging area to be in. It's very litigious. There's a lot of fighting that goes on. And so it's important to protect yourself. So I'm happy to take questions. And Andrew, if you want to interrupt me with questions at any point, go for it. Andrew's going to be asking the questions that are posted in the group. But I'm going to start off with a couple of things that I wanted to talk about. So the first thing that anyone who's ever heard me talk has heard me talk about these two things, but I'm going to talk about them again. So awesome. Never too many times. And then I'm also going to share some horror stories because I was asked to do that as well. And I think that cautionary tales are always important. So the first thing I want to say is that I cannot overstate the value of being incorporated. I know that some of you guys are based in the United States, and in the United States, you've got another corporate structure called an LLC, a limited liability company. I practice law in Ontario. I don't know the difference between an LLC and a corporation from a pros and cons perspective. So you can certainly talk to a lawyer in your jurisdiction about that question. But my understanding is that is also a valuable way to protect yourself. But the bottom line is that you should not be operating a construction company as, Andrew Houston, I've got a, hammer, I'm here. You need to be incorporated. Construction, as I said, can be so litigious. And if you don't have a company and you get sued, you're going to be sued in your personal capacity, and they can take your house. That's the bottom line. And
it's happened.
It's happened. It doesn't happen often, but it happens.
Absolutely.
And so the number one thing that you can do to protect yourself is to incorporate. In Ontario, you can incorporate online without a lawyer's help for about $300. It's really straightforward. You can hire a lawyer to help you, and if you want to do anything interesting with shareholders and partners and whatever kind of corporate structure you want, we can help you out. A lawyer in your jurisdiction can help you out. But just have the basic incorporation and have yourself protected, super easy. You can do it by yourself online. It's like $300. From my perspective, it's a no-brainer. So if you haven't done it already,
it's not only a no-brainer, and let's not get deep into it because that's not the point of today's conversation. It's not only critical to protect yourself, but everybody listening in, and maybe a lot of you are incorporated, but if you're not incorporated, I'm going to tell you right now, one of the best things of having a business and it being incorporated is the amount of tax that you don't have to pay. All right. So if you really want to, this is not just, you get to protect yourself, but it's also you actually get to keep a lot more money instead of it going to the government. Okay. But from a protection perspective, I mean, why do you think people, like I've heard some people, they seem to be hesitant. Like, I don't know if I should incorporate or not. Like, they think it's like, I don't know, some major overhaul of their business, or it's way more complicated than what they think. What's your comments on that?
So, I think that this really goes back to all the things that PFC talks about all the time, right? I think it's just in my experience, when I've talked to people who aren't incorporated or haven't incorporated and continue to not incorporate, they've never been concerned about something. It's never like, oh, but what if this happens, or I'm worried about this. It's always just like, oh yeah, I got to do that. I'll do it eventually. And it's the same thing you always talk about, right? You're busy, you're a contractor, you're running your own business, you're doing everything by yourself, and you just don't have time to get yourself incorporated. So, if it's something that's on your to-do list, but you haven't done it yet, put it at the top of your to-do list, make it a priority, and get it done, because it is so critically important.
Yeah.
And as I said, it's easy, it's not expensive, and it's as Andrew says, a no-brainer. Andrew, I'm sorry to interrupt. Yep. Andrea asked if we're live because she can't see us. So can other people?
Yeah, I can see that we're live on the actual group.
Okay,
yep.
Great.
Yep.
Just making sure.
Yep. I can see both you and I. There's always a little bit of a delay with the feed, but I mean that's common. So yeah, we are good to go. So so that's a big one. Okay, so if you're not incorporated, everybody listening in, then honestly, you're crazy not to be incorporated. The reality is that there's tons of risks, but if you don't incorporate yourselves, guys, think about this. You could be in business for 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, and it only takes once. It's not like you got so many points on your license and, I got caught speeding. Oh, okay, I still have my license. I've got so many more points left. I mean, you can totally get screwed over. Am I right, Kayla? With this?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. And what would be the situation that would be initiated? Would it be like a lawsuit or something of that nature?
Yeah, usually a lawsuit.
Right. And
remember, and let me say this as well. I talk a lot about construction liens and registering construction liens, and we'll talk about that a little bit today, but it's not really the point of today's discussion. But if you're a contractor and you're operating by yourself, and I'm going to use Andrew again, and you're just Andrew Houston, yep. And you decide that you want to register a lien because you haven't been paid. Not that Andrew would ever let his accounts go unpaid, and not that Andrew would ever fight with the client. But if you ever need to register a lien and Andrew Houston registers a lien against someone's home, what's going to happen is the next step after you register a lien is that you have to start a lawsuit. Okay, so Andrew's going to start a lawsuit, and Andrew Houston is going to be the plaintiff in that lawsuit. And what's inevitably going to happen is that once you start your lawsuit, the homeowner is going to counterclaim against you. That happens in pretty much every construction case ever. So now you're owed money. You're trying to get the money, but now you've got a lawsuit against you and your personal assets are exposed. Wow. So yeah, it can come up if you get sued, But even if you do everything right and you don't get sued because your work was deficient, but you start a lawsuit because you haven't been paid and you want to protect your bottom line, your assets are still exposed because you're not incorporated.
Hey, Kayla, can I share something that's very personal?
Always.
So everybody listening in, I got sued. I wasn't incorporated. I did it over a handshake. I did the old school, hey, I was helping this guy out. Long story short was I was helping this guy out. He couldn't do the work. I was an automation expert. He wasn't. And, we sat down with the client. He's at one side of the table. I'm at the other side of the table. They're like, okay, Andrew, we need you with your expertise on automation. Such and such electric is going to go and do the install and things of that nature. And I'm like, yeah, this is totally cool. And I was not incorporated and I got sued. And I was at a super young age having to go and get a loan from my mom, but it was all out of my pocket. So everybody, trust me, Kayla, I haven't shared that ever on a podcast, but that was the reality. That was a massive wake up.
Bringing things out of people.
And I was, and the reality of the situation was, and I know people are going to be like, okay, Andrew, whatever, but the reality of the situation, I did this as a favor and it completely came back on me. Once that other party started thinking that, hey man, we're out a lot of money because we didn't realize that, we didn't realize how big of a job Andrew was going to do in the automation side. They're like, we want it all. And they were all incorporated. And I almost had to file. I came that close to having to file for bankruptcy.
So that's another thing I want to say, Andrew. Don't do favors for people. I'm joking a little bit, but you've got to protect yourself. And so, if you're going to do a favor for someone, that's fine, but you've got to make sure that you're protected. So, I'm gonna actually use this as a jumping off point to talk about the next thing that I wanted to say, which is put everything in writing. No handshake deals, Andrew.
No handshakes. Tie my hands behind my back here.
Keep your hands behind you. Don't even shake your clients' hands. We're in a pandemic. There shouldn't be handshakes, period.
Absolutely.
Every contractor should have a standard construction contract that they use. If you're a GC, it's a good idea to have a contract that you use with your client and a contract that you use with your subcontractors. If you're a subcontractor, most often, if you're a trade, a lot of the time, the contractor that you're working with will have a standard form of contract that they're going to give you, but they might not. And if they don't, it's a good idea for you to have one. So I do this for a lot of PFC clients. I prepare construction contracts. Again, I'm based in Ontario. So if you're based in Ontario, give me a call and I'm happy to help you out. If you're not based in Ontario, still welcome to give me a call and I can try to help you find someone that's local to where you are. And for other, throughout Canada, I can help you out as well. But all this to say, you need to have a construction contract. It has to be in writing and it has to be good and it has to be appropriate to your jurisdiction. So, if you're just downloading a contract off of the internet, that's a good start. It's better to have something than nothing. But if it doesn't conform to the laws in your state or in your province, you could run into issues still. So have a construction contract. Especially if you're doing fixed price work, you should have a provision in your contract that requires change orders. And if you're going to make changes on the project, make sure you're putting it in writing, make sure you're getting signed and written change orders. At a minimum, make sure that you have an email between you and the client saying, I'm going to do this. This is what it's going to cost. And the client says, yep. But don't be making changes to the scope of work. Don't be making changes to the price of the work without a written change order, at least in the form of an email.
No, go ahead. No, go ahead.
You go first. I was going to.
Well, I want everybody to understand something here. Okay, there's a couple of key things before we go any deeper. Is on the incorporated side, once you're incorporated, you're incorporated. Okay, so that means that once it's taken care of, you're done. That's it. You're incorporated. Okay, everybody. These contracts that Kayla is talking about, I want you to put a different set of lenses on than what I typically hear. And what I typically hear is, oh man, I don't know if I really want to, have that level of detail. It might actually turn away some clients. It might, it might not be the best for my branding. That is a load of bullshit. Okay.
Andrew, I could not agree more. And sorry to interrupt you, but I need to jump on that because you're absolutely right. And there's two things I want to say about that, and then I'm going to let you continue if there's something you wanted to add. But first of all, because you're right, that's something I hear a lot. So first of all, these contracts that you see and some of the ones you're downloading online may look like this. Now they're with therefore the here undersigned. We don't do that. Construction contracts should be in plain, simple English, easy to understand. If you're getting a construction contract drafted, it should be straightforward. It should only be a few pages long, 5, maybe 10 at the outside, and it should be simple and easy to read. 12-point font, not 5 pages of single space, 6-point font. It's clear, it's easy to read, it's short, and I think Andrew is going to say the same thing. But I think it makes you look more professional. I don't think it makes you look scary. I don't think that it's a turnoff to clients. I think that when you show up at your client's house and you say, hi, I'm here, I'm ready to go, here's our draft contract, it makes you look professional. It makes you look like you've got your shit together. I think I'm allowed to swear on this podcast, given its name. Right. And I think that people like that.
Here's the thing. If you got to ask yourself this question. So there's a couple of things you want to think about. If somebody's not willing to sign a contract with you, which, by the way, is not just about a one-way street of it protecting you, get that out of your head. It's also to protect them as equally, right? The thing is that if somebody isn't willing to sign a contract that's going to help protect them, protect you and your relationship, make sure you're on the same page, you might want to be asking yourself the next question, which is like, should I be actually wanting to work for these people? Okay. And the last thing I want to say is whatever's in between your ears is how it's going to be interpreted to the prospect or to the client. And what do I mean by that? If you're going in there believing that this contract is a load of bullshit, you're going to get back bullshit. If you go in looking at this as I'm a serious business owner, and like Kayla said, this protects my brand. This helps have better relationships with our clients. This ensures that we are going to deliver what it is that we say. And so are you, Mr. or Mrs. Client. That is going to get you more of the right work, okay, with the right clients, because you're going to be in the right mindset. Okay. So, Kayla, what's that's like so far, like this is great. Okay. This is great. This is what this is what everybody needs to hear. What's another area that I see there's a little question here from Daniel, and maybe we can get to it after this point, but he says, I want to let somebody go, but I need legal paper so he won't destroy my contacts, or that's what he put. So we can talk about that in a second, but you said you wanted to touch on the lien thing just for a little bit. Let's get that sucker out of the way. Okay.
So, and again, I apologize to any of you who are outside of Ontario because I'm going to talk about the Ontario timelines, but the one thing that is universal is that there are lien timelines and you should know what they are. And so if you don't know what they are, Google may be able to tell you, and if Google can't tell you reliably, call a lawyer in your jurisdiction. There's going to be an article written by a lawyer somewhere in your jurisdiction that'll tell you what they are. You should know. In Ontario.
By the way, what is a lien?
That's a great question, Andrew. Okay. A lien is a right that you have against the property that you improved. And it's a really simple concept, okay? The concept is you're a contractor, you showed up and proved the value of a piece of property, and the person who owns the property has lots of money, and they're going to get more money because they get to take advantage of the increase in the value that you provided, and you should get to share in that, okay? So if you provide, we call it labor, services, and materials to improve the value of a property, and you don't get paid, you have a right against that property. And to enforce that right, you have to register a lien. The lien is for the value of the work that you've completed. Okay, it's not tied to your invoices, it's tied to the value of work that you've completed. Why is that relevant? It's relevant because you might work for 3 months on a project, and oops, you just forgot to send an invoice, or you had an agreement that you were going to get paid at the end of the project or whatever. Or maybe you worked for 2.5 months and you invoiced for the first 2 months, but you haven't gotten to your billings yet for the third month. It doesn't matter. The amount that you've invoiced isn't what's relevant. The amount of work that you've done is what's relevant. Okay. In Ontario, the process for liening is that you have 60 days from, it's a little bit murky in some cases, but to be safe, we call it 60 days from your last day on site to register your lien. And then you've got another 90 days from that date to start a lawsuit. You have to do both of those things. And if you don't do one of them, then your lien rights expire. And they're very unforgiving. In Ontario, at least, most timelines, if you miss them, you just go to court, you say, oops, sorry, Your Honor, can I get a little more time? And the court says, no problem. Liens don't do that. With liens, if you miss it, you're done and you can never get it back. So why do I bring this up? I bring this up because, and sorry, before I get to that, I want to say one more thing, which is that projects that were started before July of 2018 in Ontario, okay, so 3 years ago, if you're still working on any older projects, the lien right is actually only 45 days, not 60. So that's becoming less common now that we're into 2022. And especially if you guys are mostly doing home renovation projects, you're probably not working on any old projects. But just to keep in mind that if it's an old project, you should assume it's 45 days until you learn otherwise. Anyway, the reason that I bring this all up is if you're not getting paid, you should at least consider whether you want to register a lien. And you may not want to register a lien in every case, and that's fine. But the last thing you want to do is let your lien rights expire. And, you know, I have while we're telling war stories, I have a client who's like the nicest guy in the world. And it is not helpful to him when he wants to get paid, because inevitably he gives people so much latitude, and he waits and waits and waits. He's like, they're going to pay me. They said they're going to pay me. And a couple of years ago, actually, when I first met him, he came to me because he'd been working with a lawyer who didn't do construction law. And he said, I think it's time that I need a construction lawyer. And I said, yep, I think that's right. And what had happened was he'd not been paid, and he was owed a lot of money, $200,000, and he hadn't been paid. And he went to his lawyer, and he wrote an email to the other side, and he threatened to register a lien. And the other side said, yeah, we're going to pay you, we're going to pay you. And they never paid him. Then his lien rights expired. Then he asked his lawyer to start a lawsuit. So his lawyer started a lawsuit. So now he's in a lawsuit, which he wanted to avoid because he's a super nice guy. Now he's in a lawsuit, but he doesn't have a lien. So what happened? He brought the lawsuit to me. He said, I think we need to fix some things. I said, yeah, we should fix some things. Anyway, eventually we won. Okay, and he got a judgment for like $200,000 plus his legal costs. Like he got a judgment for almost $300,000. He has not seen a penny of that. It's been 3 years now. He has not seen, and he still sends emails. He's like, "Where's my money? I want my money." The problem is, he contracted with a corporation that's just one corporation related to a whole bunch of other corporations. They've got a whole network of corporations specifically designed to protect themselves from liability, which is what I'm recommending all of you do. But the problem is that as a contractor, you've got really good rights, right? You've got a right against the property. And if he'd registered a lien, then eventually when that property was sold, and it has been sold, he would have been entitled to be paid out of the proceeds. But he didn't register a lien. So instead, he's just chasing this shell company who doesn't own any assets, who doesn't have any money anymore. They were only set up for this one project. The project's finished. And the reality is he's never going to see that money. And so he ended up in the same position he would have anyway, right? He wanted to avoid a lawsuit, so he didn't register a lien, but he ended up in a lawsuit anyway, but it wasn't as valuable as if he'd registered the lien. So I say this all to tell you guys that you're not going to register a lien every time you don't get paid, but sometimes you're going to want to register a lien, and you need to make that decision before your lien rights expire. So just keep track of when your last day on site is, when your lien periods expire, and call a lawyer before your lien periods expire. And by the way, don't call a lawyer on the last day of your lien period. Typically, I can put a lien together within 24 hours, but sometimes it's more complicated. Sometimes it takes longer. And the last thing that you want is to call your lawyer on the last day and have something go wrong. Call a lawyer by day 55. Again, that's in Ontario. I don't know the mean periods in every jurisdiction, but in Ontario at least, call your lawyer at day 55 and say, hey, I have lien rights. I think they're going to expire soon. Can you confirm that for me?
Perfect. Love it. Love it. So let's see here. Let's go back to, let's see here. Okay. So Daniel, we got a couple of questions. One is back to Daniel. Says, I want to let somebody go, but I need legal paper so he won't destroy my contacts. Any insight on like some of the legal things that people should prepare themselves for when they're letting somebody go?
So first of all, this is obviously different jurisdiction to jurisdiction. And second of all, I'm not an employment lawyer. So really, really high level, I can tell you that at least in Ontario, you can either fire someone for cause, which is that you have a reason, or you can fire someone without cause. If you fire someone without cause, you can fire anyone at any time. You don't have to have a reason, as long as you're not firing them for, a human rights ground, like because of their religion or something.
Right.
Okay, but if you just fire someone because it's not working out and you don't really like them anymore, you can fire them anytime you want, but you have to give them notice. And that's when we talk about severance. Severance is just the amount of notice that you're paying someone. So you can either say, you can work 2 more weeks and then you're done, or you can say you're done today, but I'll pay you for 2 more weeks.
Right.
Same thing.
Right.
Okay. It's always easier to fire someone without cause and just pay them enough that they go away. So, having the best thing you can do to protect yourself is to have an agreement with the person that says, I agree that I'm not working here anymore and I'm going to be paid this much money for that. But it's always a good idea to consult an employment lawyer before you fire someone, because the exposure is that you could get sued if you do it wrong.
Yeah, and I know this isn't your field of expertise, but even what you've just provided there is great. I guess before we move on from Daniel's question, is there any contracts or any agreements that you know of? Again, I know this isn't your expertise, but where you can protect yourself such that say you got an employee, contracting space. We'll just use electrical because I was an electrician, and I got this electrician working for me, and he's got a relationship with my customers because he's been servicing those customers. Say it's a service contract or something like that, so he knows them intimately, but they're my clients. Is there anything that you can put into place that you know of that you could say, hey, let's say the person decides to quit, where you're going to have some protection that they're not going to go after your clients?
Yeah, totally. So I would say that employment contracts are really one of the top 3 things that I help PFC clients with. And again, I don't do it, one of my colleagues does. I do construction contracts, but I have colleagues who do the employment contracts. But so yes, we draft a lot of employment contracts for PFC clients, and it's, as I've said, put things in writing. You don't have to have an employment contract with your employee, but it's a really good thing to do. And yes, we do have language that we can put in employment contracts that say that you can't solicit the employer's clients for some period of time after you leave. You have to be careful with non-solicitation clauses because they have to be, reasonable, and there are all kinds of rules that the courts have come up with around what is and isn't reasonable. So we do that.
Okay, awesome. Okay, let's see if we can get another question in here. So Chuck says, I haven't read this one yet, so let's see. What should I take to an attorney in my area to have generalized contract written up? Something I can use with all of my clients. So basically what I think Chuck is asking is like, what are some of the things that I should get prepared?
That's a great question. If you already have something that you're using, I would bring that to your lawyer because they should look at it. Find a construction lawyer. Don't just find a lawyer who does contracts. Construction law is very specific. In Ontario, we always say don't dabble in construction law because there's so many rules and they don't relate to any other industry. So find a construction lawyer. Again, if you're in Ontario, call me. If you're not, you can send me an email. I can try to find you someone in your area. Find a construction lawyer, and there's nothing you really need to bring them. You just need to be prepared to tell them a little bit about your business. What do you do? Who are your clients typically? How much insurance coverage do you carry? What's your pricing model? Do you do fixed price or cost plus? How often do you invoice? Do you take deposits? Things like that. But you know, I have a standard list of questions that I ask clients when I'm preparing a contract for them. So I'm sure that, again, if you find a different lawyer in your jurisdiction, I'm sure they'll be able to tell you exactly what information they need. There's nothing really that you need to give your lawyer.
No, but those are good things though that you just highlighted, like the cycle time of your invoicing. You know, knowing what kind of like your structure around pricing, right? You know, the lawyer needs to have a bit of a gauge of what your pricing model is. Like those are some of the things that, you know, just be prepared that they're going to be inquiring about, because I'm sure those are some of the things that, you know, have to be protected or be considered, right? I mean, if you do jobs that everybody listening in, if you're doing jobs that are 3-4 years, then that's important, because you might have some jobs that are still going on since 2019, 2018, like who knows? Like those are all relevant questions, right? To protect yourself once you finish those jobs or whatever, right? So awesome, very cool. All right. Dan says, where do I get a paper for this? Daniel, what else we got here? Yeah, so Daniel just saying this guy has a big mouth, enough to slander. So yeah, it just goes to show, Daniel, like my dad used to say this to me, and I don't know how relevant it is, but he used to say a rat is just a rat, but when you corner a rat, it becomes a beast. In other words, putting contracts in place is all about protecting you and as well protecting the client in some cases. But this whole buddy like mentality that like I've got in me, you know, the handshake deals, the things of that nature. If you can get into your mindset that that's not going to do anybody, you know, it's not really going to benefit people. It's going to be, and it's not about being a jerk, okay, or being an asshole. It's really about truly being a champion seal business owner. That's what it's about, okay?
Can I jump on that, actually,
Yeah.
Andrew?
Yeah.
So I totally agree with that. And I'll tell you, I do sometimes work for homeowners. I prefer working with contractors, but you know, I do it all. And I'll say, like, the number one thing that I hear from homeowners is, I know, I was so stupid, you know, there was no contract and I should have known, like, should have signed. And so I can tell you that from the homeowner's perspective, it looks more professional, and they know that the contract protects them as much as it protects you. So I agree completely. You shouldn't think that you're going to put people off by asking for a contract. The other thing I'll say about the, you know, being buddy is, you should be buddy with your clients. Of course you should. You should be nice. You should be friendly. Your clients should like you. They should want to work with you. I hope my clients like and want to work with me. Yeah. But, you know, I cannot tell you how, well, actually I can. It's 100%. 100% of the cases that I review, I have to review all the email correspondence that goes back and forth between the contractor and the homeowner. And I got to tell you, in 100% of cases, they start off all buddy. Hey, yeah, how's your kids? How's your dog? It's great to see you. Oh, I'm really excited to start this project. We're so happy to be working together. And by the end, it's like, screw you. You screwed up everything in my house. I hate you. I never want to see you again. And so all of this is to say that, you know, you should be buddy, but you should still protect yourself, because you just don't know how things are going to turn out.
Right.
And sometimes things go wrong. They're out of your control, right? Maybe when your subcontractors does something stupid that you didn't expect. You've worked with them before, you thought they were great, but they do something stupid and now you're on the hook for it, right? It has nothing to do with how good of a contractor you are, but you've got to protect yourself, because you don't know what's going to happen.
You know, everybody listening in, there are things that are in your control. Getting contracts in place, it's in your control, okay? There's a lot of things to make sure the relationship with the client goes well, and there's certain aspects, a lot of things that you have control of, but there's some things that you don't have control of, and that's you know, a big reason to have a contract. And I'm just going to throw one out there. I don't know if anybody can relate to this or knows what I'm talking about, but something called COVID. Oh shit. I don't have enough guys. They're at home sick. Oh man. Because of that, I can't get enough guys on the job site because we're only limited by so many people in the same room. So now that slowed me down. Boom, lawsuit. Oh, what do you mean? Well, you delayed the project. You're not following through on what we talked about. It's like, oh shit, I should have had a contract.
Yeah, that's just a great example, Andrew.
You know, and let's face it, were you in control of COVID? No. Were you in control of the regulations and the rules that the government, whether you're in the States or frickin' Mexico or Canada or Ontario? No. But what is the one thing that you could have had control over? The contract and how to deal with those different scenarios, right? And by the way, maybe this, I don't know, Kayla, if this is, again, I'm just throwing this out there. We didn't talk about this, but I don't know if that's grounds for, in the future, making some considerations around, if certain things, happen that are out of our control in a contract.
So we do. And so it's funny because our standard, we call that in law, we call it a force majeure clause. And it's a
I know that one.
It's a fancy word for it. It's not my fault. And we have a long list of stuff in our force majeure clauses. And so, I'll say it's funny because every time I draft it, I'm like, airstrikes, war, blockades, epidemics. And you know what? There's a pandemic, and our standard force majeure clause says that if there's a pandemic, you're not responsible for whatever that you couldn't do because of the pandemic. And I would never have thought that would come up in my lifetime or matter. But you know what? People who had that in their contract are really happy right now.
So if you're listening in on this podcast, I don't care where the hell you are in the world, if you don't have that clause in your contracts as of today, you've listened to this, I'm going to say this, not to be a mean person. If something freaking happens to you because of it's related to some pandemic or something like that, then welcome to what I call ignorance tax, because you've been well aware of it. You've been told. Get it in your contracts, make that slight modification, and protect yourself, because nobody else, in all honesty, one of the things about being a champion CEO is taking what's called extreme ownership. Extreme ownership means you need to protect yourself. You need to protect your business. It's protecting your clients. It's protecting your team. It's protecting your family. But you have to own it, right? Nobody else.
And you know what, Andrew, that's a great point. And I'll also note this one as well. Another thing that's been a big deal lately is the lumber shortage and the escalation in prices of lumber. And a big thing that I'm being asked by contractors who are doing fixed price work is to put in a material price escalation clause that says this is the fixed price, but if the price of materials goes up by some percentage, I get to change the price. And that's a big one that people don't use a lot because, clients want a fixed price. You give them a fixed price, you're taking the risk that materials go up. That's how fixed price contracts work. But recently it's been a really big issue. So.
Well, and guys, think about this, okay? I'm not going to get deep into it, but I'm just going to tell you this. I use this example all the time. Most contractors are lucky to get a net profit of 10%. Okay. So going back to, you lose 2% here, 3% there, 5% there. Okay. You get a lawsuit. You don't get paid because you didn't do a lien. I'm going to tell you right now, this puts years onto the work that you have to do to pay for those errors, to pay for those things of ignorance, right? And at the end of the day, they're going to be coming to you in one way or another. They're going to be coming to you personally, or they're going to be coming to you as a business owner. It's really up to you, right?
So Andrew, I want to tell one more cautionary tale, and then if there's more questions, I'm happy to answer them. But I think you'll like this one. So I promised Andrew I would tell some cautionary tales. So a couple months ago, I had a case that I've been working on it for a few years, and I was working for a homeowner. And here's what happened: the homeowner contracted with the contractor, who seemed like a really nice guy. But what happened was that he gave him a price, and the homeowner said to him, "We really like you, but your price is $100,000 higher than the other guy that we want to hire. So if we're going to work with you, you've got to knock $100,000 off your price." Andrew, what do you call that?
I call that guy. What would I say to that guy?
What would you say to that guy?
I would say, "Have a nice day. Bye."
Correct. You know what this guy said? "Okay, I'll knock $100,000 off. So that's the first part of the cautionary tale. Andrew talks about this, I think, constantly. Like, I think I hear Andrew talk about this more than anything else. But it's true, right? And I couldn't even believe it. I was reading these emails. He's like, you got to knock $100,000 off because we'd rather go with you. I'm like, well, if you'd rather go with him, there's probably a reason you'd rather go with him. So you got to pay more for it. Otherwise, go with the guy who's $100,000 less. Anyway, so things didn't start off well. Okay, Contractor knocked $100,000 off of his price. So what happened inevitably was he couldn't do the project for the price that he promised. It was a fixed price contract. So he said, okay, fine, whatever, we'll do it for, I don't remember what the price was. Let's call it $400,000. He said, oh, fine, we'll do it for $400,000. And of course he couldn't do it. So as the project went on, he's issuing all these change orders and he's asking for more money. And he was sort of organized with his paperwork. So he'd provide them with updated budgets and spreadsheets and costs of doing the work. He'd issue all these change orders. The clients would sign the change orders and the clients paid all the change orders. And then at some point, he issued a huge invoice and said, oh, I also need another almost $100,000.
Exactly. I knew you were going to say that.
And there were no change orders. He just said, well, I need it because of all these things and there were all these problems. And here's how that story ended. We went to a mediation with one of the former construction lien associate judges. And I said to the mediator, here's how much the contract was for, and here's all the change orders. And you can see that my client paid all the contract amounts, paid for all the change orders. The only amount they haven't paid is this extra invoice that was sent at the end for nothing. And then I don't see any basis for them to have to pay it. And the former construction lien associate justice said, yeah, why? Where did this come from? And that ended with the contractor walking away and he got nothing. And I think that's an important cautionary tale for so many reasons. First one, I'll say again, don't sell yourself short. You're doing good work. You're doing it for the price that you're doing. You know how much you need to make on a job in order to do the job. Do it for that price. Don't work with jerks who want to cut you down. Yep. It's not worth it. Number two, have a change order provision and then follow the change order provision. Because this guy got halfway there, right? He had a change order provision and he did issue change orders and they were thorough and they were good, but then he just stopped at one point. And I think that the reason that he stopped was that he just couldn't really keep up with everything because they were just, his costs were getting out of control and whatever, but that goes back to the first issue. But because he didn't have written change orders, he wasn't entitled to be paid for the extra work that he did. So that's my cautionary tale. And that's, again, I cannot overstate, put everything in writing, have a written contract, have written change orders, and just make sure that everything is set out in writing. It doesn't, I swear to you, it does not come across as, covering your ass. It doesn't make your client think that you don't trust them. It makes you look professional. It makes you look diligent, and your client will take comfort in it.
Totally. And, I'm going to say one of the things that should make this a little bit easier for everybody here, okay, is we're in a space right now. And I mean, I know the space. This is my sandbox, right? We see thousands and thousands of people engaged with profit contractors. And one of the things that's consistent is there is more demand than there is supply. I'll say that again. There's more demand than there is supply. And by the way, it's going to the gap is going to get even greater. Okay. We're in the next 10 years, it's going to be the greatest exit of small, medium businesses. And one of the greatest areas is in the construction space because there's all these older guys that are they're just going to hang the key up. They're not going to sell the business. They're just going to walk away. So I'm saying this because I want to let you know that you should be empowered by that statement. You should be empowered to say, listen, I'm going to cherry pick and I'm going to work with the right type of clients that not only respect me, but they support me protecting me and protecting them. Okay. So if you're in a situation where that's not the case in today's world, I'm going to tell you right now, there's other problems. Okay. But whatever you do, don't get desperate. Don't be that guy that was like, I'll drop 100 grand, forget about it. Okay. Know your pricing. You know how to play the game. And like anything in life, it's funny. Like Kayla, did you ever play any sports in life?
Yeah.
Okay, give me a sport that you play.
I played rugby for a while.
Love it. Woo! Okay, so what's the rules of the game with rugby?
Sure.
Yeah, there's rules of the game. Now, why was there rules of the game?
Because otherwise it would just be a bunch of people running around on the field.
Otherwise, it'd just be a whole bunch of people running out on the field. Right. Everybody listening in, isn't it funny that if we were to play rugby, a game of shinny outside, pick up hockey, I don't care freaking if it was hunting, I don't care what the sport. You know what the funny thing is? We'd all be like, hey man, these are the rules of the game. Now let's go play. But the first thing is like, what's the rules of the game? Otherwise, there's no game. It's just mass chaos. So make sure that you're playing by your rules of the game. Otherwise, you're going to be playing by somebody else's game with different rules. And guess what? The outcome might not be what it is that you want it to be. Okay. So I guess if there was one last thing that you would tell, the audience listening in, is there what would be the last piece of advice before we wrap up this podcast?
I want to make it something new that I haven't already said. But I just want to, I can't, I just want to say again, because this is the piece of advice that I want to give every contractor I talk to. Do the things you have to do to protect yourself, make them a priority, incorporate. It's not hard. It's not expensive. It needs to be at the top of your to-do list if you haven't done it yet. Have a written contract, make it a good one, put things in writing. You've got to protect yourself. And if you're part of PFC, you're doing it because you want to level up your business. That's why you're all here. And this is a big part of leveling up your business. You can't, you're joining Profit for Contractors because you want to earn more profits. Make sure you're keeping them. Put them in your pocket. Totally. Don't let them pass you by.
You can't get your profits to pay for your freedom if everybody's taking your profits. Yeah. Right? Okay.
Totally.
So here's my last word of wisdom, everybody listening in. Okay. And this might be Jen would say it's a rhetorical question, but I want you to seriously think about this. Okay. There's two questions to this. Number one question: are you a lawyer? Survey says, I bet you it's a no, but there's somebody on here that is a lawyer. Now, why am I asking that question? Well, let's see where question 2 goes. Okay. Are you really good at your trade? I'm gonna fucking tell you this. Okay. 90+%, 95% of the people that come through the door to become a champion CEO of Profit for Contractors are absolutely the Gretzky's. Or in other words, they're amazing at their trade. They know their trade. They're able to process shit in their brains. You guys are all smart. If you're an owner of a contracting company, I am telling you right now, you are super intelligent. You got more skill set than people have any idea. That you can look at blueprints. You can process like a fucking 1,000 things going through your head and organize things and follow different codes and regulations and all that stuff. But it's all related to your trade. Okay. Don't try and be a fucking lawyer. Don't try to be a bookkeeper. Don't try to be the accountant. There's how many years did you have to go to school, Kayla?
7.
7. And you probably came out and it was like, now I have to actually learn how to be a lawyer. Probably.
Yeah, I was going to say, I that's why I hesitated. I went to school for 7 years, but then I had to learn a lot of stuff when I finished.
Right. It took me 5 years to become an electrician. I'm going to tell everybody listening in. I came out, I thought that I knew what it was to be an electrician. And I was like, I felt like I was a first-term apprentice once it was like, okay, Andrew, here's your first big job. And I was like, holy shit, this is real. My point is, be good at what you're supposed to be good at and surround yourself with a team of people, of experts to make your business as good as it can be. Stop trying to be the expert. Stop trying to say, I don't know if I need that, or maybe I should get that, or whatever. You've got enough things to focus in on. And part of becoming a champion CEO and scaling your business and getting it to the next level is putting yourself in the right seats on the bus that you're good at. And even more importantly, making sure you're not in the wrong seats. So go get an expert. Reach out to Kayla. If you're in the Profitable Contractors Association, post your questions to us, and really get the expert advice. So that's another No Bullshit podcast from Profit for Contractors. Thank you so much, Kayla, for being here today, and thanks for being part of our community. Kayla's in our Champion CEO group, where people are asking questions. You've helped so many of our clients and protect them and protect their profits and protect their business. You're a rock star. You've done a lot of great things for us here at Profit for Contractors. So everybody listening in, if I'm having somebody like Kayla on here, it's because I trust her, and that should go far. So thank you so much for everything that you've done for us, and we'll keep it moving forward.
Always a pleasure. Thanks.
Hey, Rockstar, I hope you enjoyed that one. And if you did like this one, join our private Facebook group, Profitable Contractors Association. It's one of the biggest communities for contractors with over 10,000 members, where you get the latest insights to help you delegate, dominate, and deliver so you can take your contracting business to a whole nother level.